My husband came home from a week-long business trip, and I greeted him at the door, only to discover a little girl who was about a year old in his arms. I immediately asked who this baby was, and his reply made me feel like I was struck in the back of the head with a metal pipe.
We couldn't make a baby together, so I went and did you the favor of adopting a baby for us. You don't have a problem with this, do you?
I was obviously surprised at the sudden offer. I just couldn't accept something like that. When I asked my husband who the baby's biological parents were, he got furious and told me it was none of my business, and attempted to force me to accept that we were going to adopt a baby instead of conceive one ourselves. I was obviously strongly opposed to the adoption, and when I pressured him to answer all the questions I had, he later gave into his fury and revealed a shocking truth that plunged all my love for him into an abyss of eternal darkness. This is the story of how my husband's strange behavior over the course of around 2 years eventually culminated with quite an unexpected course of action, and how the truth behind his behavior caused me to exact my revenge by divorcing him, leaving him penniless too. My name is Juliette Vallée, and I'm a 32-year-old medical assistant at a local hospital. My French-sounding name comes from my father's family, who are from Quebec up in Canada, and I was raised by very stubborn parents who always spoke their minds for the greater good. And about my job, when I was young, I was kindly treated by an elderly assistant at a hospital after I'd gotten a nasty gash in my arm after falling into a bush from a trampoline in the backyard. So, after graduating from college, I started working as a medical assistant. I started working at the hospital when I was 22, and this marks my 10th year of my career. I met my future husband, Riordan, 6 years ago when I was taking a break from my work and found a confused guy in the hallway of the hospital. That was none other than Riordan, and he was having trouble figuring out where he had to go for his first appointment. I told him where the specific clinic was, and he thanked me, left to get back to my lunch. After work that day, I stopped by a bar on my way home, and the man I bumped into, sitting next to me, was the same Riordan whom I met at the hospital. We had a very sparkling conversation, probably because we were both a little intoxicated already, and as the night progressed, we went to another bar, which he frequented, and had another drink together. That night was quite literally the most fun I'd had in a while at that point, and we exchanged contact information before bidding each other goodnight. We kept in touch regularly, going out for lunch or dinner when we both had time. We had a lot of fun when we talked, and I learned he was just an ordinary office man working in the headquarters of a local company. But we really didn't care about each other's occupations. As we talked about deep topics, we grew ever more attracted to each other, and the progression of our relationship was natural. The relationship blossomed into something wonderful, and we eventually got married. After a year of enjoying our newlywed life together, I wanted to have a baby, so I started preparing for getting pregnant. But no matter how hard I tried, Riordan and I couldn't conceive children. I became suspicious and decided to go to the hospital to have it checked out. That's when I found out that I was infertile. I was so depressed, partly because I wanted to show my parents and in-laws their first grandchild as soon as possible, but also because I wanted a child more than anything else in the world. I often tended to young children in my line of work, and talking to them, seeing them smile, hearing them laugh, and sending them home all healthy and better made my maternal instincts yearn for my own. And the hope of getting pregnant was so strong. To have it all destroyed in one fell swoop like that, let me tell you, one wonders if they'll ever bounce back from the trauma. I came home from the hospital and talked to Riordan. I was so nervous to tell him the truth, but I knew I had to. What should I do, honey? I don't think I can have a baby.
Don't worry, Juliette. We'll work together to get through this. I'll be with you every step of the way.
Thank you, honey.
Of course. We're husband and wife now. It's during tough times like this that supporting each other is especially important for both of us.
Oh, Riordan, I'll do my best to improve the situation, honey. And mark my words, we'll get a baby, one way or another. Hopefully by me getting pregnant, though, LOL. In retrospect, that joke proved to be extremely ironic. Fast forward 4 whole years of infertility treatment. The reality that I couldn't have a baby very easily made me feel completely discouraged many times. It was so bad at times that even if I forced myself to, I couldn't be genuinely happy for my friends when they got pregnant. And I hated myself so much for being that kind of person. Still, I wanted to be the mother of my husband's child, so I kept at the infertility treatment, staying patient and determined, desperately fighting the anxiety in my heart. One day, after years of determined work towards improvement, I went to the hospital again to consult with the doctor. And this time, the results were very satisfying. Thanks to the drug therapy, the possibility of conceiving a child had improved substantially. After being told these results, I tried to seduce Riordan that day. But his reply was extremely curt, and this immediately made me suspicious of something. I didn't know what it was, but something seemed off.
I'm sorry. I'm not in the mood for this. It's not the right time.
What do you mean it's not the right time?
This is a very dire and stressful time for me. I'd like you to give me all the rest I need at night from now on, honey.
What's happening, Riordan, exactly? If it's something truly important, you ought to tell me. I think I can help, and even if I can't, I think just telling me about it will help make you feel better.
It's...
Riordan Valet, I must remind you that you can talk to me about anything. You said so yourself. I believe that as we are married, we're meant to support each other, especially during the hardest times, right? We've always supported each other up until now, haven't we? Why begin to stop now? Don't worry, honey, just tell me what's going on. Perhaps my words consoled him quite a little. His tense muscles relaxed a little, and he slowly began to tell me the situation with a mysterious look on his face.
Actually, my workplace's performance is getting pretty bad, and it may go bankrupt within the next few years.
Bankrupt? Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I am. Literally everyone is talking about it. They actually offered to let people resign with a sum of money to help them out with their life while they looked for another job. But practically no one quit, so they're going through a major restructuring.
Restructuring?
Because they can't afford the personnel costs due to its poor performance. They're going to start to lay a bunch of us off. So that's why it's a terrible time to be thinking about this, Juliet. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to lie. I thought he was going to come up with some lame excuse because of some underlying suspicious motive that I had to spend some time trying to discover myself. I honestly didn't expect such a solid reason for being so pessimistic about conceiving a baby, and I couldn't blame him for his slumped shoulders and glum demeanor. It may be difficult to be in that kind of mood at a time like this, for sure. I gently cuddled up to the dejected Riordan. I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
No, it's okay. I know you're trying hard to get fertility treatment, and I know you want a child pretty badly. Believe me when I tell you I want one too. But under the circumstances, even if we do have a baby, you know...
I do know. I know you're worried about your financial situation. But don't worry. I'm making enough money so that when the time comes, I can take care of you. I can support you alone, without a baby, for a while.
You're a real trooper. You know that? Thank you. So much.
Of course. We're husband and wife now. It's during tough times like this that supporting each other is especially important for both of us. Riordan smiled happily, as if my words relieved him. But I still wondered if it was because of this anxiety that he began to do some strange things. By strange, I don't mean suspicious. I mean plain unorthodox. Up until maybe 20 months ago, he used to go away from home twice a month on holidays to visit his ancestors' graves. While strange indeed, I merely thought he was just a good man who cared about his ancestors and the legacy they left behind. But for a year and a half, he had ceased to visit the graves. He did mention a big restructuring of the company, and he must have been very anxious about the poor management of his workplace. It must have been very stressful for him to work, not knowing when he would be fired. And that's why I later said to Riordan, maybe now you can visit the graves again.
Visit the graves?
You haven't been able to go there recently, right? To meet your ancestors? Isn't that because of your workplace having some trouble?
Yeah.
If you're about our family life together, honey, don't be. I have enough money saved up to support you if the company suddenly goes bankrupt. I think you should go see your ancestors. People will start to worry about you if you suddenly stop coming after being so consistent for so long.
Maybe. Yeah. But you know what? I'm not in the mood.
Not in the mood?
Because, it's strange to go all the way out here at this time of the year, isn't it? Anyway, it doesn't matter now.
Holy smokes. What was with this change in attitude? During the time he used to visit the graveyard every other week, my physical and mental health were both rather vulnerable as a consequence of the infertility treatment notwithstanding. He would say that cherishing one's ancestors is more important than anything else, and that I must visit the graveyard without fail. So, why was he treating his own ancestors with such disrespect as of now? I suddenly found myself suspecting Riordan of something he wasn't telling me, but I couldn't question him, and the months passed. Then one day, he went on a business trip and was away from home for a week. I wondered if it was possible for a company that had been in near bankruptcy for several years due to poor performance to give him a 1-week business trip. I decided to ask him about it. Hey, where are you going on this business trip?
Why, to Florida, Juliet.
Where in Florida?
Why do you want to know about that?
Can't a wife at least want to know where her husband is going? That's how things work in marriages, honey.
It's none of your business where I go on business trips.
That's not true. What if something happened while you're away? Like an accident or something like that? You could tell me in case of an emergency.
My God, you're so annoying.
Why are you so goddamn reluctant to tell me? You know you're going on this business trip because of work, right?
Why else would I go? For God's sake. Look, I have to get ready, so don't interrupt me.
Riordan! I'd been feeling uneasy ever since my husband told me about his business trip. Why did he stubbornly refuse to tell me where he was going? Was this trip really for work? I didn't want to doubt him, but my anxiety was sending me on an emotional roller coaster for a while, until the day he came home from his business trip.
I'm home.
Welcome home. Wait, who's this little girl, Riordan? When he came in through the front door, I discovered he was holding a little girl whom I didn't recognize. She was cradled in his arms and stared at me curiously with her big round eyes.
She's the daughter of some relatives of mine. Ain't she the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? She's only 1 year old.
Yes, well, she's very cute. But are you going to keep her for a short time or something?
No, I'm not going to keep her for a short time. I'm going to keep her for her whole life. Think of adopting her.
Adoption? What are you talking about? Out of the blue. Riordan's sudden statement made me feel like I was struck in the back of the head with a metal pipe. Adoption of a relative's child? What in the world of Warcraft sorcery was he talking about? In spite of my confusion, Riordan proceeded with his story in high spirits.
My relatives couldn't live with this child due to unavoidable circumstances. That's why I offered to take her in. It's a pity that this girl's all alone, isn't it?
Wait, I know you feel sorry for her, and believe me when I tell you, I also feel sorry for her. But who the hell are these relatives from whom you were offered to take her?
Relatives are relatives, Juliet. Nothing too important.
Nothing too important, my ass. What are their names? What are these unavoidable circumstances that you were talking about?
You don't need to know all those details to take the child in. Juliet, listen. If we don't take her in, she'll be all alone so early in life. Don't you feel sorry for her if that happens?
Yes, I do feel sorry for her. But I just can't accept a girl whom I don't even know where she comes from.
I'm telling you, she's the daughter of a few relatives of mine.
And I'm asking you who these relatives of yours are. Why do you insist on keeping that piece of information a damn secret?
Hey, don't yell. You'll scare her.
Riordan said and started to nurse the toddler in his arms. I was so annoyed that he literally didn't answer any of my questions, and I continued to pressure him into answering all the questions I had. Don't be so ambiguous. You can't just decide something as important as adopting a child in this manner without consulting your wife about it beforehand. That is one thing, and it's something completely different when you outright refuse to tell her who the child really belongs to.
A child of relatives is a child of relatives. What more could you possibly freaking want? You don't need to know any more than that.
Tell me you're not serious. How can anyone with at least a smidge of common sense accept a potential family member without knowing who they are at all? As I argued with the most infuriating man in the world, who kept blurting out how unimportant the identity of the baby truly was, the little sweetheart started to cry. She said the word dada, and once I heard that word, I wasn't going to forget it. Not even in 1,000 years would I ever forget that one word. What does she mean by dada, Riordan? Explain it all to me, or so help me, tonight will be a very long night indeed.
What the frick are you talking about? She did not say dada. You misheard her.
Not true. I clearly heard dada. Why is this toddler calling you her father, Riordan Valet?
Oh, shut up. You want to know so badly? Fine. I'll frickin' tell you, goddammit.
My pressuring eventually got his patience to its limit, and he finally got upset and started yelling at the top of his lungs, telling me everything. Firstly, the bi-weekly visits to the cemetery twice a month, that was all a lie, and that he had been in fact visiting his lover on the days he was away from me. The woman's name was Mariah, and her relationship with Riordan had been a thing for quite a long time, nearly 2 years in fact, long enough that she bore his daughter last year. So, it turned out that Riordan and his lover decided to have the child after much discussion. Getting her pregnant was the easy part. The hard part was coming to grips with the fact that she only had a part-time job and far from enough money to provide the newborn with a decent life. Its life was going to be poor and a bit miserable. So, while it pained them greatly to come to that conclusion, they decided on an abortion. However, before Mariah had her abortion, she disappeared from Riordan's life, and he could not get in touch with her anymore. That is, until a week prior to Riordan coming home from his business trip, which was also a lie, by the way. Mariah suddenly called him out of the blue and told a very surprised and concerned Riordan that she'd cut off all contact because she was going to get the abortion as planned, but couldn't go through with it and changed her mind. She gave birth to the child on her own, and she tried raising the child by herself, but after a year, it proved to be far too hard for her alone. She reached out to Riordan for help, and the week he was gone, he'd gone to see her to talk about things and make a good decision. Until Mariah's phone call, Riordan had no idea that he had a daughter. He thought she was destroyed. He lied to his company saying that he had gone to his parents' funeral down in Florida. And he lied to me saying that his workplace had sent him on a business trip to Florida. For 1 week, he stayed in a hotel, taking care of his daughter Gabriella, and went to see Mariah every day. The story made complete sense to me, because the reason why he hadn't gone on those visits to his ancestors' grave for a year and a half is that Riordan also went to see his lover, who lived nearby up until she went incommunicado. Even if he went to visit the grave, he would not have been able to see her, so he didn't have any damn point in going there at all anymore. But let's consider this under a different spotlight. While I was undergoing fertility treatment to potentially welcome a new family member with the help of my husband, the same husband was embracing another woman he loved dearly enough that he would take her child under his wing. He'd been telling me that we should support each other even through the darkest of times, which to me was a seemingly endless fertility treatment. And all the while he was pegging another woman without ever properly dealing with me and my infertility at all. The moment I realized this, I was helplessly depressed and angry. I suppressed the feeling that I was about to burst into tears and said to Riordan in a shaky voice, "Thank you for telling me."
Well then, glad you came to your senses.
Now I understand clearly. I can't even live together with the child of the husband who cheated on me, much less raise her.
What are you saying? You would abandon such a small child like this? Some wife and mother you would be. You frickin' piece of shit. That's why you can't get pregnant, bitch.
Excuse me?
If you can't love a child, that alone would render human scum like you infertile. You wanted a child so badly, and I brought one here for you. You're gonna have one more family member, just as you hoped we would. What is it you said? Mark my words, we'll get a baby, one way or another. Well, now you have, and I don't expect you to complain for shit about it.
These words sent my anger over the boiling point, and I exploded. It was a moment when even the passionate love of hundreds of thousands years could turn stone cold in but an instant. I had no regrets in my heart when I came to the conclusion, right then and there, that I didn't need this lousy person in my life anymore. I said clearly, in a deadly quiet, trembling voice, "We're done."
What? Juliet, what are you saying?
I don't feel I'm obliged to become this child's mother, nor do I think I will ever feel obliged to be one. I'm done with you. All the work I put in us, in our future, turned out to be meaningless. We're done.
You can't leave me. What are you gonna do with your life?
Have you forgotten I have a good job? I told you I'm making a living decent enough to take care of you and myself. And I have my savings from high school too. I can survive without you. Easy peasy, nice and cheesy, Riordan.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Anything but divorce. Please?
And what are you talking about, Mr. Valet?
I got a call from my boss today that the company is in its final days. Literally. I could lose my job any day now. If we get divorced, I won't be able to make a living to take care of Gabriella.
So what? What does it matter to me if you can't make ends meet?
We've been so supportive of each other, Juliet. How could you be so cruel right now?
Well. Looky who's talking now. I was freaking struggling with infertility and working my damn ass off to make ends meet so that the chances of me getting pregnant would improve. And what were you doing? Having a grand old time with a dance with no pants with Mistress Mariah. What kind of supportive marriage is that, eh? You've got to be kidding me.
Calm down, Juliet. Please. I'm sorry about the affair.
You don't frickin' say my name, Mr. Valet. What am I supposed to do with you with your flimsy frickin' apology? Forgive you? Over my damn dead body. There are some things in this world that no amount of apology will ever make one forget and forgive. I don't need you in my life anymore. Goodbye. Riordan, still holding the sobbing Gabriella, collapsed on his knees as I delivered the final blow, and I proceeded to call my in-laws. When I told them what had happened, they hightailed to my house. And as soon as Mr. Valet, my father-in-law, saw his son, he forced him to the ground on all fours and slapped him across the face as hard as he could. Literally, what a bastard like him deserved for what he freaking did. When Riordan's face was painfully swollen, the beating stopped, and my parents-in-law got down on their knees and apologized to me, crying as they begged for forgiveness to them.
It was our fault for making a mistake in raising our son.
They told me that they would take back their son and Gabriella, and that they would take care of the toddler themselves. Hearing those words, I felt relieved that the child was in good hands, and I was able to divorce my husband. Since then, Riordan has lived on his family's farm, and he seems to be spending his days without freedom. Gabriella seems to be well taken care of by my ex-in-laws, and she seems to be growing fast. I am furious at Riordan for cheating on me, but the child is innocent and has absolutely zero fault in this whole thing. I genuinely hope she will grow up healthy and full of love from her grandparents. As for me, I'm spending my time working hard as a medical assistant. I have a long life ahead of me, so I'm going to make the most of the time I have and make it a life full of happiness, friendship, and love. Wish me luck.